Hello, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Really quickly, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jen Levisen. I'm Director of Content here at Mortarr and Editor-in-Chief of the Forum. And I am joined by Dan Stenzel and Daniel Delisle today. They are with Wells and Clark Pacific, and they'll be talking to us more about Infinite Façade. So Dan and Daniel, I'm gonna pull up the presentation we'll be sharing today, but if you would like to introduce yourselves, it would be a great time to start now.
Go ahead, Dan.
Absolutely. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Very excited for today's conversation. Glad you could be a part of it. Again, my name is Dan Stenzel. I'm with Wells. I've been with Wells for just over 9 years now, and actually took a little bit of a hiatus halfway through there. Went and worked for a large general contractor, but ever since coming back in 2019, I've been a part of our Infinite Façade group. I am the product manager for Wells and responsible for all things Infinite Façade within the Wells organization. So sales, business development, the design, the engineering, manufacturing, and field logistics with that. With that, I'll turn it over to Daniel.
Hi, yes, good morning. And so I've recently joined Clark Pacific. Well, recently I've been here several months now, but recently as their senior product manager to help drive products and vision for the growing, but also already very highly successful facades division. I was previously working with construction technology startup companies, including director of exterior systems for a construction tech firm called Katera. And they're, of course, providing product and construction project management and solutions for many types of prefabricated and modular manufactured systems. However, my foundation in this space really comes from the traditional AEC industry at larger design firms, and also in building envelope, new design consulting, and construction litigation support. So with my experience, I bring a good understanding of traditional construction, industry gaps and needs, and an appreciation for opportunities for new construction technology, not only for new design, but also for construction coordination with manufactured products, and especially their installation and trade coordination, which is essential for the construction process, both offsite and on-site platforms.
Awesome. Thank you both so much for joining us. The backgrounds you've shared and really the history of your companies of Wells and of Clark Pacific really are kind of uniquely positioned you to create the Infinite Façade product and really form that consortium. Can you talk a little bit both, maybe Dan, we'll start with you. If you could talk a little bit about Wells and kind of the role that you and the company play in the consortium that we'll get to in a little bit.
Absolutely. So a little bit about Wells itself. You know, we are a family-owned company. We've been in business for over 65 years, and most recently we've expanded quite large. We have roughly over 1,400 employees that work for the company, both in the manufacturing side of things, and then as well as the folks that are out in the field putting buildings together, in-house engineering, drafting, and other operations, including project management. We have offices spread throughout the Midwest and Mountain States. Currently, we're operating out of 6 manufacturing facilities, which are located in Denver. They're just outside of Denver, Colorado, Albany, Minnesota, Rosemont, Minnesota, and then the original flagship in Wells, Minnesota itself. And then most recently, we acquired another company that has operations in Velders, Wisconsin, in Crystal Lake, Illinois. At Wells, we strive to bring a new way of thinking to projects. We really, we have the backbone, the knowledge, and the experience surrounding the company that there hasn't been an issue that somebody within the company or the organization hasn't seen before with that. So we take pride on the way that we think and approach projects. We feel is very different than most folks with the way things have traditionally been built. And with the introduction of Infinite Façade to the Midwest and Mountain States region, is just, you know, further proving that point of a different way to build with the Wells organization. With that, I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, and I've really been enjoying working with Wells and Dan, obviously. Clark Pacific really changes the status quo of panelized construction with lightweight and low in carbon architectural precast systems, thin shell exterior skin systems, but also GFRC, glass fiber reinforced concrete systems. It's been great working with these systems. I'm super familiar with them from my past, but at Clark Pacific, using our latest technologies, we're really leading the industry in driving more sustainable, efficient, high quality, but also cost-effective off-site solutions. What I've come to realize really is that our manufacturing methods, supply chain and logistics, and construction of buildings has really been carefully optimized over 3 generations of leadership. So 60 years of service in the AEC industry, and all that deep understanding, and that we differentiate ourselves with very high quality, customer-centric systems compared to the market. Some notable projects, Apple Campus or Apple Park Campus, most of you have seen it. It's a 2.8 million square foot office building located in Cupertino, California. We also did the parking structure for that. The Grand in LA, very prominent structure with a very prominent architect, Frank Gehry, and the great team besides Frank Gehry in that group. Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara for the 49ers. And I can go on and on, many very high profile and innovative projects here at Clark Pacific.
Awesome. So thank you both for walking us through the history.
Sure.
Very stalwarts in the industry for sure. And now Clark Pacific and Wells have partnered together to form the Facades Consortium Group. Can you talk, both of you, Dan, maybe we can start back with you, talk a little bit more about the group and the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's been a long history of a great relationship between Clark Pacific and Wells that dates back many years before my time even. And over that time, you know, both companies have realized that we have very similar shared visions and goals that we want to accomplish within the industry. And a part of that is changing the way that we do build in the industry. So just over a year and a half ago, Wells and Clark got together and they decided to make it more formalized. So we legally joined together to create the Facade Consortium Group. And the main purpose for that is to offer the Infinite Façade product across the United States. So no matter where a certain owner, client may be building, they can utilize the Infinite Façade system anywhere in the United States. Another reason for the partnership is to join our forces within the research and development, all the testing that we've done for certain products for that, and then ultimately working together to continue to build upon and evolve the Infinite Façade to its next series, to additional offerings, additional finishes and configurations with the product itself.
Awesome, thank you. Daniel, can you tell us more about Infinite Façade and really what it is?
Yeah, Dan said a lot of it there, but our, really the way that we're bringing this particular product to market is unique, and it's solving a lot of challenges, solving a lot of problems that we've seen and the issues that we've seen in the traditional construction industry. Like I said, Dan, you hit it on the head. It's such a great product, and we're evolving it and optimizing the system. But really, something that creates this design flexibility that you wouldn't really know is a prefabricated system once it's installed. So we'll talk more about that, but I'd really like to jump into sort of prefabrication and how this product is unique. It is prefabricated, but it's unique in its own right. And then talk about perhaps some of the challenges that we face and what we need to consider.
Yeah, no, most definitely. So when we think about prefabricated building envelopes, what are some of those needs and things that you need to consider, and what are some of those challenges?
Right. So some of the challenges, and again, I'd like to focus on how the Infinite Façade, which we'll highlight more here in a bit, solves some of those traditional construction challenges. So our systems take the traditional field and hand setting operations off-site to what we understand to be and what the industry recognizes to be a safer, quality controlled, optimized factory or plant environment. We can therefore deliver highly optimized thermal, air, and watertight, fire-rated panelized systems to any project with the finishes and windows and louvers and insulation, all of those things pre-installed to reduce risk is a big one, waste and schedule, while still providing improved quality, aesthetics, and performance, all the things that we really like. So we have a suite of these pre-designed systems that offer a wide range of geometric and aesthetic flexibility, with all the benefits of an off-the-shelf system, which includes, like I said, what we all want, which is reduced manufacturing costs and expedited delivery with less risk.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that a little bit more, about a prefabricated building envelope, you look at other components or materials that are out there, and the amount of standardization or customized finishes that go along with it. As you're seeing on the screen here, a lot of these projects are very different in the way that they look with that. And that was very intentional for us, as what we did with the Infinite Façade on standardizing the engineering behind it and the frame design that comes along with it, and really having that done so that we could focus on the aesthetics. We want to be able to give folks a number of different finishes, colors, textures, materials that can go into it. And then also to add on a little bit more is the ever-changing window to wall ratios, right? How do we combine many different materials, large windows, and still bring it back to a standardized product? And with Infinite Façade, we've checked all those boxes for that. And just to dive on to a little bit more of what Daniel had mentioned, what is very important to a prefabricated envelope is it also needs to check the box on being a barrier system, right? It has to perform. We work in all climate zones here, specifically for us in the Midwest and the mountain states. It gets pretty cold here, right? We need to be able to have a system that is able to handle that. And with Clark in their scenario there, where they're building in seismic zones all day, every day. So there's the barriers, there's thermal performance, and then structural engineering behind that. So.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So Infinite Façade is really the single source for the complete building envelope. And how did, where did the idea for that product come from?
Yeah, so I'll take this and really, and I'd also like to get a little bit more into what is Infinite Façade, if it's not clear yet. But really, the idea for Infinite Façade, I would say, and I'd like to hear from Dan too, but it came from all the years of optimizing the manufacturing processes, logistics, and installation that I spoke of before. That and the need for reducing site impact, increasing quality controlled, conditions, reducing risk, right? You know, and really, you know, waste and schedule as well. But both from the manufacturer of product side and also our client side, and a way to be more cost effective and really accelerate construction schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm going to stress on just the call it the voice of the customer, understanding what folks are asking for, what are their pain points, and you know, it's pretty well known. You know, construction industry is way behind as it relates to technology, and us as precasters have been manufacturing for well over 60 years, both companies combined with that. And to continue to improve upon, you know, what we do, how to drill down costs of products, and then also listening to our folks, our clients and folks that we build with every day for more ways that we can improve our products or bring new products to market that make their life easier. And a couple notable things within Infinite Façade that Daniel kind of touched on as well is, you know, it is super lightweight, right? Historically, we've been known to be heavier products, right? And we took that as a learning point and made adjustments with it. So understanding the impact on our products to a building itself, you know, the superstructure, the foundations, the cranes that are needed to it, the amount of trucks that are required to drive to the job site, were one thing with that. And then just the integration of multiple different finishes. You'll see in the images on the screen, there's combination of architectural precast, metal panel, thin brick, terracotta spread throughout. And I think what is most important, you know, for the idea of Infinite Façade is how do we combine a large number of scopes of work that traditionally were done by 5 or 6 different subcontractors, and with that, making the life of a general contractor, design team, the architects, and ultimately the owner, how do we make their life easier? How do we reduce risk? And you know, it is combining that scope and putting it into a pre-engineered product where all those details have been figured out. I loosely use the term of when talking with folks, you know, you think of Infinite Façade and all that it does, and having it make your life easier when there's an issue or there's something that you want to look at on a building, you have one firm to go to. It's a single source. It's a call it one throat to choke when things are being looked at on the job site for that. So,
I mean, you sold it right there, right?
Sometimes I gotta watch out what I ask for, right?
There you go. Oh, fun. One thing that I loved when learning more about the product and the work that you're doing is really the flexibility that it gives. It gives owners flexibility, design teams flexibility. Can you both speak a little bit to that and what that really looks like and means?
Yeah, you're on a roll, Dan. Go ahead.
Absolutely, sure. You know, flexibility is huge. You know, it is a standardized prefabricated product, but again, as we had mentioned before, we wanted to keep it flexible. We need to be able to accept a wide range of window-to-wall ratios and a number of different materials that we're going to either cast in or post-applied to our products with it. But it's in a way of, you know, finishes that range from architectural precast, thin brick, terracotta, metal panel is very popular. And again, what can we do on our part to offer, you know, hundreds of different finishes and colors and textures? Daniel, anything more to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that what I know Infinite Façade to be is a product that really bridges the gap between utility and aesthetics. The layout and articulation of panels can be highly customized, from the glazing ratios that you were just talking about to over 100 different opaque infill options between the windows. So Infinite Façade really redefines how owners and design teams approach the facade system. Besides fully customized panel systems are, which is outside of the scope of Infinite Façades, our pre-designed systems offer a big range of geometric and aesthetic choices. It also has known standardized frames and connections to the building for easy installation. And again, that word known, high performance. So from structural loading to daylighting to weather and air barrier requirements, thermal requirements, Infinite Façade beats all of the strictest code requirements and really delivers this high performing and sustainable product. So it's pre-designed, but also gives the design teams complete design flexibility. And then the build teams easy to install, low risk systems. And we'll probably talk more about risk a lot, because I think that it captures a big part of what customers want, and from the manufacturing side, what we want as well. But we're talking about flexibility, and I think the aesthetic flexibility, but also the structural flexibility is key. For aesthetic flexibility, the exterior materiality and the finishes choices are huge. There's colors and textures, and we can also provide exterior finishes not typically seen on some of the taller buildings by using form liners, literally these liners that the exterior skin is placed against or cast into during fabrication, like brick and terracotta, etc. Also with our systems, we have the ability to customize the layouts, like I mentioned, and articulation of the panels. So recesses to windows and locations of joint lines, for instance, returns at perimeter conditions, etc. Those can all be changed to suit the needs of the design and meet that flexibility that the design teams really are seeking.
Awesome. I love that the images we're showing just really illustrate that flexibility too. It's fun to see all the variations.
Right.
Could you both address some of the short and long-term benefits of prefabricated facade, whether, from maintenance and all the way to occupancy?
Sure. So short-term and long-term, I think, there's a huge amount of well-established benefits, I'll say, for prefabrication. But for short-term benefits, I would say installed cost certainty, and then accelerated schedule or sooner occupancy, and then reduced overall risk. And again, that term is going to come up a couple times, even for long-term benefits, I think. But for short-term, so known materials and detailing allows for, number one, more accurate material projections. So we can leverage bulk ordering and storage of materials in the manufacturing side, and then optimization of detailing and manufacturing, but also during the installation processes. So basically fewer substitutions and change orders in the field. That's a good thing, right? That really comes from well-known processes and understanding the integration of different systems. This can remove constructibility reviews and design. It can remove or reduce or even remove RFIs, which are not fun for everybody. Requests for information during the construction phase, right? So that's sort of the short-term benefits, but the long-term, I would say, high quality leads to long-term durability and lower maintenance and occupation or operating costs, which for in-service performance and sustainability long term. Perhaps Dan, you can elaborate on performance a little, and then I can talk a little bit more about sort of sustainability and what we're doing to drive sustainability into these products.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple, few things that we've done together. It are some reports on energy usage and the impact that Infinite Façade does do or may contribute to. So one of the recent reports that we have done with Infinite Façade is a GluMac energy study, and what that does is it measures the Infinite Façade enclosure system and compares it back to ASHRAE and a couple other building systems, including like curtain wall or metal stud, metal panel wall assemblies. And one of the unique findings that we received out of that is that the Infinite Façade performed better than any of the other systems that we compared to. And actually it ended up reducing the amount of heating and energy needed to heat and cool a building by 30% when you compare it to traditional curtain wall assemblies and other metal stud wall assemblies. So there's major long-term advantages to using Infinite Façade as compared to other envelope enclosure systems with that. And then also another report that we did find was that we found that Infinite Façade, there's 12% GHG emission reductions when also being compared against curtain wall. So there's many, we can continue to talk about aesthetics and just about the product itself, but we also have the documentation and results that prove the performance of the system, what it means day one, and what it's going to mean in the future. Daniel, I'll hand it back off to you.
Yeah, great. We've been going externally for a number of these reports and working collaboratively with great groups. For instance, the GluMac report that you just mentioned and some of the others. We also had a life cycle analysis done by a great company, Walter P. Moore, which there are many webinars out there if you're interested in learning more about. But from what we were able to show, we can get between 25 to 60% lower embodied carbon than comparable other systems, and you mentioned a couple of them, Dan, metal panels and curtain wall systems, for instance. So you also mentioned the lighter weight. So the Infinite Façade weighs about 65% less than traditional APC or architectural precast concrete panels. That reduces the demand of the structural elements supporting the facade, the exterior facade, so you can lightweight those elements as well. So we've done some great studies that show that can actually reduce the concrete volumes that we typically need. And we've also removed over 60% of the cement that's traditionally used in some of these bigger systems, the APC systems, for instance, but also the structure. Along with that, we have a proprietary concrete mix for our exterior skins that replaces up to 35% of the Portland cement used in the systems. That and really I'm highlighting some of the bigger benefits. There are many in these reports. Which again you can look at on these other webinars. But in addition to all of that, we also use HFO spray foam insulation. So that has super high R values, but ultra low global warming potential. Some of this spray foam that we use is named in sustainability categorizations like the 2019 Best Green Building Product and and really the community at large sees that these materials that we're using and that we're highlighting really reduces the global warming potential by a lot, up to 75% compared to typical other materials.
Are you seeing like trends and requests and things like that more and more coming in, looking for that sustainability information and for your products to be able to respond to that?
Yeah, you know, it really is a highlight for almost all projects that come in these days, and it really doesn't depend on the state. Of course, we are in California and there are some restrictions, but as I mentioned before, we have met or exceeded, and that's a key term there, or a key word there. We try to exceed all code requirements in California, and that's for the product at large. Dan, are you seeing that as well, where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's very important to folks in the Midwest and Mountain State region is that thermal performance and barrier systems as well. How do we keep the water out of the building, and how do we allow the building to perform at less energy consumption rates for that? Some other trends I think that have been, you know, maybe more on the design side of what we're seeing here is going to be I'll say the push for larger windows. Historically, you know, as you look back at traditional APC, there's always been a need for having some real estate or areas around the windows, and folks are pushing for taller, full height glass, larger window to wall ratios, and utilizing Infinite Façade and the standard frame that comes behind it. We can accommodate all of those. Few other things, kind of what you're seeing on the screen. There's a lot of desire for designers to incorporate what I call skin articulation. So that's buildup of the panels, making some projections, allowing for natural shadowing or sun shading on the building, and how can we incorporate that into the panels for that. And I think most importantly, as you look at prefabrication, and the trend for that is look at what's going on, you know, every day, the labor issue, and the desire for increased quality control, right? By utilizing Infinite Façade, we pulled the construction off the job site and put it into a controlled factory, right? I always tell folks, it's always sunny and 75 within our manufacturing facilities. And that's not always the case in everywhere that we do build with that. So, you know, the trend being increased quality control, and then how do we take the labor off the job site to increase the speed to market? How quick can we get the owner into the building to start generating revenue?
Yeah, and can I add to that, because I think you're talking about trends in the industry and trends in this space, and I think really that and the purpose of this webinar, actually, the demand for prefabrication and reduced risk is a big one. Not to mention reduced cost, which is always imminent, but the silos that commonly exist in design and construction these days can, you know, and it can really hinder collaboration and increase risk. Whereas with offsite and single source manufacturing and open collaboration, the process has potential value to alleviate a lot of the issues that are commonly associated with traditional construction, and those issues do definitely exist. So essentially, one manufacturer, you said it before, Dan, one installer, one warranty, really helps with that. But the pre-engineered systems, they allow for repeatable, high volume components, reducing detailing time, with faster installation, and then we get that imminent, you know, less cost, but all of that with the flexibility that you never know is prefabricated once it's installed. So that's definitely something that I wanted to mention that we're seeing in this in our space.
Definitely. How long is it a recent trend, or how long has that trend for that type of solution been building?
Yeah, I started several years ago. I mentioned before, looking into of a more offsite approach and more prefabricated, and then productizing of the construction components. And so I've been doing it for quite a while. I know that when you look at panel systems or volumetric systems, offsite manufacturing, it's not that new. There are studies that go back many years. I think what Wells and Clark Pacific really has an advantage for is the manufacturing, shipping, logistics, and installation of panels, of big panels. So typically you have companies that are trying to take traditional construction and trades and putting them into that offsite factory, and there's some friction that's involved there. But Clark Pacific and Wells, they have this long history of doing just that, putting components together in a manufacturing facility and bringing them to site and installing them. So it's been going on for a while is the answer. I think that the industry is starting to catch up now, but Clark Pacific and Wells definitely has an advantage.
Definitely. Dan, anything you would like to add?
I was just going to say, Daniel hit it right on the head. And what I was going to contribute to it is, we've been at least doing it for 65 years, right? Both companies, Clark Pacific and Wells, everything, we were built around offsite manufacturing for building components and putting them together with cranes on the job site when it's ready, right? So you think away of other building systems and the amount of time and I'm going to call it construction waste materials that are needed to build something on site. Precast has been ahead of the game, and we're looking forward to pushing it even further. So
definitely. And now I know you both touched on this a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering if you could speak to kind of how, current construction and supply chain and building materials, climate, how the current climate impacts the timelines and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start here and Daniel can take off. Construction's busy. We're all very busy right now. You hear it. We get calls daily on potential projects. And most folks, their number one question right now is when can we get it, right? How quick can we get it? And I think there's been call it a built up of a backlog from the COVID, where a large number of projects were put on hold for a year or year and a half, and folks are starting to move forward with that. And it is gotten to a position where that is also tied in with folks that were originally planning to build in 2021 or 2022. So the amount of scope projects out there have, they have increased lead times for everybody. Some materials are harder to get than others. I believe both Clark Pacific and Wells has the ability to source materials in a fashion that is historically faster than others or other building components with it. And it's how do we better prepare ourselves for these lead times, and what can we do on our side in the manufacturing to accelerate some of these processes with that. Daniel, anything more to add? Yeah,
I'll add to that. You're right about lead times and pipeline of projects. There's, I'm thinking about the project delays that we have contended with in the construction industry, obviously due to a number of reasons that you mentioned. However, prefab really carries several distinct advantages to contend with those project delays. For instance, we can, just a couple of examples, we can shave months off of schedule and gain occupancy literally months sooner over traditional field installed systems. With the exterior installed quicker and all of those cladding systems that are tightened up, and you have a thermal barrier and an air barrier and the weather barrier, you really can start to launch the other trades into the building to continue to build out a project and get it to dry in faster. So you can achieve building dry in faster, and especially because we use these much larger wall panels that cover significant exterior square footage. And so the building goes in faster, over some of the smaller other panelized systems that are out there. These are big, strong, very, very strong and well-engineered panels that are lightweight and take all of those barriers and meet all of those requirements. So there's less trade congestion on site and way more efficient. Not to mention, all of the other things that we've been talking about with reduced cost and reduced risk and increased performance for long term. So it's a big advantage when trying to make up for all of these delays that we saw over the past couple of years.
Absolutely. And one quick thing I'd like to add to that, as we're having conversations with future pursuits, there's heavy talk on schedule, right? I think both Daniel and I mentioned that, and what we found out, and I was able to do a study with some partners, some industry partners, and for a particular project, it was 27 stories tall. And they were considering a number of different facade options with it. And what we had found out with the Infinite Façade option is that we were 4 weeks per floor faster than any of the other systems that they looked at with that. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
That's a good one.
Ran out of time with it. So.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you. And we should, in the follow-up that we'll do with the conversation today, we can link out to some of the additional information that you both have mentioned throughout the conversation too. And we'll also share contact information for Daniel and Dan too, but it will just kind of give all of our attendees the full package of the product. But as we're wrapping up today, Daniel or Dan, are there any kind of final thoughts or things that maybe we didn't touch on earlier that you'd love to make sure get mentioned before we wrap up the conversation and get to questions?
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I see and kind of the aha moment that I get when I'm sitting with clients is that they didn't recognize the full potential of the system and the flexibility. Historically, they've thought of they hear the word precast and they think of different things, right? And it's, our job is to educate the marketplace. And I stress that folks just, if you have questions, you have considerations, you're looking at options, you don't know where to go, just feel free to reach out to any of us. Clark Pacific, Wells, great resources for building evaluations when considering projects with that. So we're really excited about the Infinite Façade. We're proud of it, and we believe it's the best solution for a facade on any given building with that.
Yeah, and I'll add, we mentioned it a couple times, but the single source accountability for supply chain, manufacturing, and delivery really is serving the customer need. And if it does that for you, please give us a call. Like what was mentioned here, if our information is shared after this call, you have questions, please just feel free to ask. But we're really here to look at the industry as a whole and try to fit a product in that's meeting very specific needs. And we mentioned a lot of those needs, but there are definitely a lot more needs that that we can talk about, and we want to suit that particularly to you. So thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you both so much. I know, Daniel, you were in the chat earlier answering some questions. Is that, should we?
Multitasking, yeah.
Hey, no, more power to you. Is that something that you'd like to bring up? Or Eric had a question about spray foam with super high R values. Is that something you'd like to chat through a little bit?
Sure. Well, we talked a little bit about you know, the R values and how we're placing that onto our panels in the offsite in the factory, essentially, which eliminates a whole bunch of need for very strict quality control for substrates and temperatures and mix rates. And we didn't get into that, but I'd like to highlight that, yes, it is high R value, and some of the other insulations are actually somewhat higher. You can get really good insulations that are above R6 per inch, but these particular foams also are very environmentally friendly, and we specifically are using those not only to meet some requirements that are in California, but exceed requirements, and then also, you know, it's our core objective to make these systems environmentally friendly, but we're also doing it in a way that is eliminating some of the issues that you typically would see with some of the insulations that are out there. By bringing all of that into the factory, into a controlled environment with controlled temperatures, controlled substrates, and very high quality control. I can talk about spray foam all day long, but I'm sure that this audience may not want to.
Well, again, if anybody does follow up with Daniel afterward, we'll be sure to share contact information for both, as well as the company. So thank you.
Of course.
Awesome. Well, Dan and Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a fascinating conversation. And attendees, thank you as well. Oh, okay. Eric, I don't know, Daniel, if you saw, Eric did have one last question. We do have some time. It would be great to take education statement, known frame connections, and how that works. If that's something you could address now, or if you want to follow up with Eric afterward.
We can address whatever you want.
Hey, we've got time, so.
I think that was my statement.
Oh,
but
gotcha. Okay.
If Eric, sorry, if Dan, if you want to take a look at that, but I can also talk about it. Essentially, you know, early structure loading is known, and so you have these you know, high quality pre-engineered connections that provide dimensional consistency and early transparency, really, of loading to the structure. And we use, I don't know how far you want to get into it, Dan, but we use this unique connection that were connections that are distributed multi-point bearing connections that really nobody else has or has developed. But that really gets us out ahead of the pack and able to install faster. So that's helpful to, you know, pretty much everybody, but the GCs really love it, obviously, because it's repeatable and it's known, it's safer, easy to install, faster to install, but also you can occupy the building faster. So yeah, Dan, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, just I don't want to go too deep in the weeds either, but I'll just keep it pretty simple. You know, as you look at Infinite Façade and the connections that we have, it's really comes down to two different types of connections, and depending on how we bear the frame onto the building. So if the frame, the panel is being sandwiched between slabs, we go to one set of connections. If it's being projected outboard of the slab in a bypass condition, we have another set. So we've taken it from hundreds of different connections that we've done on jobs over the last 60 plus years, and boil it down to two simplified pre-engineered connections.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you both very much. And the last comment is just a thank you from Daniel to the group. So we will end it there. But as I mentioned, we will have lots of follow-up information for those who have registered. So Dan, Daniel, thank you. All of our attendees, thank you for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.